Friday night and everyone's looking for a bargain. But who's paying the price? Health chiefs in Greater Manchester say their area is disproportionately affected by alcohol-related harm. 6 of the 10 most affected boroughs in England are in Greater Manchester.
What we're looking at doing is introducing a minimum price per unit of alcohol of about 50 pence per unit. And the reason that we want to do that, or look at that, is that we've had a 20-year period in which alcohol price is not kept up to date with the way that inflation has been rising. And that's meant that alcohol is much more affordable than it was about 20, 30 years ago.
It would mean paying a minimum of £4.50 for a bottle of wine, £14 for a bottle of whisky and £6 for a pack of lager. Researchers at the University of Sheffield found the move could have a big impact on the region's health. They found that it would reduce each drinker's alcohol consumption by an average of 6.9%, and that would lead to over 97,000 fewer hospital admissions and over 10,000 fewer violent crimes each year. But it's left a bitter taste for some producers.
In terms of 50p a unit, my argument is that's the thin end of the wedge. Where would it stop? It's a huge debate, I know that, and something needs to be done. But my argument is that minimum pricing is not the way forward. It's happened in the tobacco industry. You get a foot in the door and it just widens and widens. And I believe as an industry we should be able to regulate ourselves on how we achieve that self-regulation, really, rather than being told by health lobbyists and politicians what pricing should be set.
The cheapest prices are to be found on the shop shelves, but landlords say it affects them too.
If you're purchasing product from wherever to take off-site and consume, by the time you're drunk, and then you decide you're going to go to the pub, it's the pubs that are left with the nightmare of somebody who's already had an awful lot to drink, comes and finishes off your drinking in a pub, and then the pub gets targeted and all the hassle is to do with the pub, and it's incorrect.
The supermarket, they can sell it so cheap. Well, people's going to go in, aren't they?
It's hitting the so-called binge drinkers, but what about the people who can't afford that? The old age pensioners, they just want to sit there watching television.
Well, I think supermarkets are lots to do with binge drinking.
So you'd welcome a minimum price?
Yep, definitely.
If you come into a public house, you have a DPS, which is a dedicated premises supervisor, which is to everybody else is a landlord or a landlady. Those people ensure that you only drink a certain amount of alcohol before you get a bit too tipsy and it's time for you to go home. If you're buying as much as you possibly can at a supermarket and taking it home, then you don't have that benefit of a DPS. So really, the 50 pence per unit just doesn't work. It should be the amount of units you can purchase to take alcohol off-site.
A move to introduce a 45 pence minimum unit price in Scotland was defeated this week, and a bylaw could be challenged by competition rules, as prices in Greater Manchester would be more expensive than in neighbouring areas.
There is no doubt that this would be a challenge to implement. It wouldn't be easy, and that's where we're having to give it some serious consideration as to how we would do it. Nevertheless, it's something which, if introduced, would have a really positive effect on health and well-being, not just for the people who are drinking, but for others as well, who would find that they would be able to access services that weren't being crowded out by people who were experiencing alcohol problems.
The report will go before the Association of Greater Manchester Authorities next week, but it could be the government that makes the first move. It's already looking at several pieces of legislation that could affect alcohol pricing. This includes the Licensing Act review and the Treasury's review of alcohol tax. Given this, we understand that AGMA might wait for the outcome of the government's reviews before deciding whether to go ahead with its own bylaw.